So, Attorney General, would you agree that it is important for law enforcement leaders to be honest?
Of course, as well as members of Congress.
Thank you. And would you include yourself as a law enforcement leader?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Now, shifting gears, there are these videos flying around that are claiming Pam Bondi is in some serious trouble. They say she's facing immediate conviction for allegedly lying in court, with a judge supposedly declaring her testimony not credible. The headlines are quite dramatic, saying things like, "Judge explodes on Pam Bondi and license revoked, promising a pathway to prison." It's easy to see why these videos are racking up millions of views. Who wouldn't be curious about the potential fallout for Trump's Attorney General if she gets caught lying under oath? But let's cut through the chaos for a moment. It's crucial we separate the facts from the dramatized fiction.
You said there's no evidence.
Trump asked
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock.
Stop
the clock.
The legislation. This is
I'd like to take my time.
Time belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center because I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is on videotape.
Because once again, it feels like the truth is being twisted for entertainment. Honestly, it's a bit wild. All these videos state quite clearly that they are fictional and not meant to represent real events or people. The creators are literally telling viewers in the descriptions that what they're watching is dramatized and not based on actual court happenings. In these fictional scenarios, there's a judge who dramatically declares that Bondi's testimony is not credible. The judge throws accusations around about her hiding or destroying evidence linked to what some might call high-profile scandals.
Were you consulted by the White House before they deployed National Guard troops to cities in the United States?
I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House.
You won't even say whether you talked to the White House about this?
I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House with you, Ranking Member.
I noticed that.
They even suggest she's being referred for prosecution using language that paints a picture of her facing serious consequences for perjury. But the thing is, none of these videos provide any real evidence of a legal indictment. There are no actual case numbers, no court filings mentioned, and certainly no real court transcripts because it's all just make-believe. There's this one related video called License Revoked that talks about a heated court hearing and suggests some potential consequences for Bondi if it came to light that she lied under oath.
Your USA's office in Minnesota investigated this crime and obtained a 6-count indictment of the murder suspect, stating that he had intent to kill, injury, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. And I have the copy right here. I read through it.
However, it also clearly states that it isn't making factual claims about her being guilty of any crime. Rather, it's just speculating about what could happen if such a situation arose. So, just to be clear, there hasn't been any court that has publicly convicted Pam Bondi of lying in court. The narrative of her facing immediate conviction is all a fictional reach or an exaggerated storyline based on real legal concerns, but it doesn't describe any actual indictments or convictions that have taken place.
There are actually basic questions about how the Department of Justice functions and the unwillingness of this Attorney General to answer them in good faith. When a member of Congress asks how many people work at the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team and the Attorney General refuses to answer it, it is not a coincidence. It's because she eliminated the team.
But it gets even trickier from here. So, there are some pretty intense legal and ethical battles going on with Pam Bondi and federal judges, and it's not just for show. She's actually arguing with real judges about contempt and court orders, not to mention the behavior of the Department of Justice. The drama we see might be fictitious, but it's all built on genuine conflicts. Bondi is really pushing back against how a federal judge has been handling a contempt case related to deportations during the Trump administration. She's taken aim at Judge James Boasberg, claiming he's trying to push a non-existent case of criminal contempt against Trump officials.
Do you believe that government officials like Gregor Bovino are obligated to follow applicable court orders, whether they agree with them or not? Yes or no?
First, Senator Padilla, you have gone on for over 5 minutes, and I wish that you loved your state of California as much as you hate President Trump. We'd be in really good shape then.
Her argument that his approach is stepping on executive power, which is a pretty serious matter when we're talking about the separation of powers and who gets to call the shots. Now, this is all happening in real courtrooms. It's more about procedures and constitutional issues than Bondi facing personal criminal charges. The whole debate centers on whether judges can hold Trump officials accountable for ignoring orders. It's not about Bondi lying under oath and immediately facing conviction. There are also genuine concerns about her integrity, especially since she's been defending Trump's policies.
I appreciate that. And I'm
No, you can't go on for 5 minutes and criticize my agents who are out working without pay right now because you voted to shut down the government. They're out there working without pay.
Mr. Chairman, I asked a simple yes or no question. Attorney General Bondi is refusing
4,500 kilos of fentanyl and 50 million fentanyl pills off the streets.
While under your watch,
FBI, 23,000 violent criminals.
Judges have criticized the Trump administration's Justice Department for misleading the courts, stating they've undermined the expectation that the government is honest. Under Bondi's watch, the DOJ has faced some pretty harsh critiques. Now, if either Bondi or any attorney general were to lie while under oath, the legal ramifications are substantial. We're talking about perjury charges under federal law, accusations of false statements, and various disciplinary actions that could even lead to disbarment. These risks are real for anyone in such positions when they find themselves in court. The dramatizations we see in videos often skip to the sensational parts, like an immediate conviction. They condense the whole lengthy process of investigation, charges, and trial into a single intense courtroom moment where the judge catches Bondi in a lie and convicts her right on the spot. But that's not how it goes in reality. If a judge suspects someone has lied during testimony, they can refer the situation for investigation leading to a probe by federal prosecutors. There might be an indictment and a subsequent trial followed by a potential conviction. It's a detailed, lengthy journey with lots of steps. Definitely not as instant as those dramatic portrayals suggest, but hey, the immediate conviction makes for a lot more excitement, doesn't it? It just adds a sense of urgency to the story. It's pretty clear that accountability is going on right now, not something that's just a distant possibility after a long legal battle. That's something those fictional scenarios get at, even if they don't quite match how the legal system really works. It's important to recognize that Pam Bondi is under real scrutiny and could face significant legal trouble. However, this threat is currently just that, a possibility rather than something finalized like convictions or sentences. Understanding what she might face if she's found guilty of lying compared to what has already happened really impacts our view of accountability. Let's talk about the actual legal complications surrounding Bondi. There's a lot of tension between her Justice Department and federal judges. Multiple judges have not held back in criticizing the Department of Justice under her leadership. For instance, Judge Paulus pointed out that Bondi's department has shattered the presumption that the government is honest. Judge Amy Berman Jackson has even issued injunctions calling out the DOJ for not respecting court boundaries. Several judges have found that DOJ lawyers have misled the courts, ignored orders, and treated judicial rules like they were optional. This isn't just talk. These are documented judicial findings in court orders and hearing transcripts. Judges are outright saying they can no longer trust DOJ lawyers. The Justice Department under Bondi has seriously damaged the credibility that these lawyers usually carry in court. This credibility issue is a big deal, because if the DOJ keeps misleading the courts, judges could start handing down sanctions. They have the power to hold lawyers in contempt, refer cases to bar disciplinary authorities, and even pass things along to prosecutors if they suspect the DOJ lawyers have done something criminal, like perjury or obstruction. So while the fictional scenarios take these elements and turn them into dramatic storylines, the underlying issues are very real. There are legitimate reasons to doubt the honesty of the DOJ under Bondi, and there are actual judicial findings pointing to misconduct. If that misconduct crosses into criminal acts, the consequences could become serious. So here's the scoop. There's this judge who really loses it when he figures out that Pam Bondi is hiding evidence. He straight up calls her out for lying and decides right then and there that her testimony isn't trustworthy, leading to a referral for prosecution. It all happens in real time during the hearing, which makes it feel pretty intense and satisfying if you're all about accountability. But let's be real, that's not how things usually play out in the legal world. Judges don't typically make those kinds of dramatic perjury judgments right on the spot. If they think someone's lying under oath, they might make a note of it in their ruling or defer the matter to the prosecutors or the bar authorities. It's not like they jump into an immediate trial for perjury in the courtroom. Normally, the process looks more like this. The judge suspects something's off, refers it to federal prosecutors or bar disciplinary counsel, and then the prosecutors start an investigation. They gather evidence, maybe bring it to a grand jury, which could lead to an indictment. After that, there's an arraignment, pretrial stuff, and potentially a trial. Getting to a conviction can take months or even years, and throughout that whole process, the accused has plenty of chances to defend themselves and challenge the evidence. It's all pretty methodical and intentional to make sure everyone's rights are protected, including those accused of perjury. But in these fictional scenarios, everything is rushed. They jump straight from an alleged lie to essentially handing out a conviction. You can practically hear the judge saying, "Your testimony isn't credible. You're being referred for prosecution. Prison's on the table." It's all about that exciting instant fallout. Now let's get into the specific legal issues these stories mention. A lot of them talk about the Epstein files, implying that Bondi wasn't truthful about releasing certain documents or was hiding evidence related to Epstein. Then there are references to deportation flights, hinting that she might have lied about following court orders or the Department of Justice's handling of immigration matters. These topics aren't just random. They touch on real controversies concerning Bondi's actions. The Epstein file releases have stirred up quite a bit of tension, with claims that the Department of Justice is dragging its feet or redacting essential information. And the whole deportation flight situation includes serious allegations that the Trump administration ignored court orders. So there are these fictional scenarios out there that really put Pam Bondi in some hot water. They're playing around with the idea of her being caught lying while she testifies on real controversies, and that makes it all feel pretty believable, even though the drama in court is completely made up. Then there's this other aspect that these videos touch on, which is the idea of bar discipline, suggesting that Bondi might actually lose her law license. One title even mentions it explicitly. That's a real possibility, since if an attorney lies in court, the bar can step in and investigate. They have a whole range of consequences they can impose, from just giving a reprimand to suspension or even disbarment. But here's the catch. It's not some quick fix. There's a whole process that includes complaints, investigations, and hearings before a disciplinary board, plus chances for the attorney to defend themselves. So it's not like her license would be taken away in a dramatic courtroom moment. Even if a judge sends a case for bar discipline, that discipline comes later through a separate process. The fictional scenarios really simplify all this, making it seem like the moment the judge catches the lie, everything spirals out of control instantly. The referrals, the license getting yanked, the way to prison paved. It's punchy storytelling, but it doesn't really reflect how legal systems actually work. Now, shifting gears to the real legal battle Bondi is involved in. And let me tell you, it adds some important background. Bondi has been putting forth the argument that federal judges are stepping beyond what they should be doing in contempt proceedings against Trump officials. She's saying judges like Boasberg are essentially overstepping their bounds when it comes to prosecutorial discretion, which is supposed to belong to the executive branch. We're talking about a significant legal debate on the separation of powers here. Contempt of court is definitely within the powers of the judiciary, allowing judges to hold folks in contempt for not following their orders. But when it comes to criminal contempt that leads to prosecution, things get trickier since it involves both the judicial authority to find contempt and the discretion of prosecutors to decide whether to file charges. Bondi argues that some judges are pushing these criminal contempt cases in ways that infringe upon the rights of the executive branch, essentially compelling prosecutors to act on cases that the executive doesn't believe are right. It really brings out significant constitutional conflict over where the power of the judiciary stops and where the discretion of the executive begins. Legal scholars can have quite a debate about where those lines should be drawn. You know, there's this big discussion going on about whether courts really have the power to demand criminal prosecution for serious violations of court orders. Some folks believe that only the executive branch should handle criminal prosecutions, making it a bit of a tug-of-war in legal circles. This kind of debate pops up in legal journals and appellate courts, focusing on some heavy questions about how our government is structured and who has the authority to do what. Pam Bondi is firmly on one side of this argument, advocating for strong executive power while limiting what courts can do regarding contempt. It's a valid legal stance, even if you don't agree with her views. Lawyers, including attorneys general like Bondi, are supposed to defend their clients' constitutional rights and push back against what they see as overreach by the judiciary. However, when fictional scenarios play with this debate, they twist it into a narrative where Bondi is portrayed as lying under oath, risking criminal charges. They take this serious legal battle and turn it into a dramatic courtroom showdown, making her seem like she's dishonest and facing time in prison. It's an effective storytelling technique because people naturally want to see accountability in personal terms. But here's the catch. Turning constitutional debates into personal criminal accusations is misleading. Bondi's legal arguments can certainly be flawed or even rejected by judges. She might be standing up for Trump's policies that the courts don't agree with, but that doesn't mean she's committing perjury or lying. Lying means giving false facts under oath, like saying something happened when you know it didn't, or claiming documents were given when they weren't. That's what perjury is, and it's a crime. The arguments about executive power versus judicial authority aren't lies. Even if judges don't buy them, they're simply legal positions. It's super important to separate rejected legal arguments from actual criminal deceit to really get what's at stake here. The fictional scenarios often blur this line, treating Bondi's legal stances as if they're outright lies, suggesting that judges found her testimony untrustworthy when really they just disagreed with her constitutional arguments. You know, it's interesting how legal defeats can sometimes turn into criminal trouble for people, and that definitely doesn't represent what Pam Bondi is up to or what true legal accountability means. Sure, you can think she's on the wrong side of things or disagree with her views on the Constitution and the policies she's defending for Trump, but there's a big difference between being wrong and being dishonest. Just because a court dismisses a legal argument doesn't mean it was a lie. Now, there's another angle to consider about whether Bondi or the Department of Justice lawyers working with her have actually made false statements in court. Some judges have suggested that the DOJ has lost the presumption of honesty, which implies that they might think the DOJ hasn't been truthful about the facts, not just mistaken about the law. If that's the case, if those lawyers, possibly including Bondi, have indeed made false statements in court, then we could be looking at serious trouble ahead, like perjury charges or disciplinary action from the bar. Those aren't just minor issues. They could really shake things up for her. But let's keep in mind, just because there are possibilities for those outcomes doesn't mean anyone's been convicted yet. Even if judges have pointed to these matters for investigation, prosecutors still have a lot to do. They need to look into things, gather evidence, and make decisions about charges, proving guilt beyond reasonable doubt. That whole process takes time and doesn't guarantee charges or convictions will actually happen. The wild stories out there skip all that messy uncertainty, painting a picture of immediate convictions as if they've already rolled out, which could totally skew what people think about the actual situation. So, here's the deal. Pam Bondi is definitely facing legit scrutiny and potential legal risks, but it's not the slam dunk. She's definitely going to get convicted scenario that some videos suggest. The scrutiny is coming from all sorts of angles. Federal judges are raising questions about the honesty of the DOJ. There are congressional investigations looking into potential misuse of power, and the media is covering cases that seem to show the DOJ behaving poorly. All that creates some serious pressure and risk for her. If Bondi or her team has lied in court, or covered up evidence, or failed to meet their ethical responsibilities, there could be some heavy repercussions like criminal charges, loss of professional standing, political fallout, or even being kicked out of office. But those consequences would have to follow through with proper investigations and established procedures, not happen overnight. When it comes to decisions, trials, and those disciplinary hearings, it's all about opportunities to defend and respond.